So a new explosive interview with Rockstar co-founder Dan Houser, hosted by Lex Friedman, surfaced online earlier today, over 2.5 hours in length, discussing everything related to GTA 6 and so much more. I'm going to be breaking down the most important bits from this interview within today's video, but real quick, if you guys are new to the channel, welcome on in. Please consider subscribing to Project Vice, and of course, turn on those post notifications so you never miss an upcoming GTA 6 upload. Also as well, please consider subscribing to Vice Clips, my second GTA 6 channel if you haven't already. Any support is greatly appreciated. A link is in the description below. But other than that, let's get straight into the video. So now, just to provide you guys a bit of context, for those of you that don't know who Dan Houser is, he is one of the founding minds behind Rockstar Games, alongside his brother Sam Houser, who's the current president over at Rockstar at the moment, writer, producer, and creative force responsible for shaping Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, and so many of the stories that define modern gaming, truly the pioneers and icons of the gaming and entertainment industry. But in 2020, he left Rockstar Games, and ever since then, fans have wondered about his thoughts in relation to GTA 6, among his other projects that he worked on, and so much more. And one of the first questions that he was asked was if Rockstar is going to be able to top GTA 6 with GTA 5, and this is what he had to say.
I think GTA 5 had the biggest launch in video game history, and GTA 6 has the potential to topping that. Do you think it will?
I would assume it will, because it's so anticipated, and anticipation is the best driver of early sales. As we saw with GTA 4 versus Red Dead Redemption 1, you know, GTA 4 far more anticipated, sold much better early on. So I would assume it will sell really well.
So it goes without saying that GTA 6 is most likely going to absolutely wipe the floor with GTA 5 sales. And I'm being serious with this. This is definitely the most anticipated game on planet Earth. And anticipation, as Dan Houser said right there, is the main driver of that, leading that forward. And in my opinion, I think this sort of leans into the interview that Take-Two CEO boss Strauss Zelnick did back in 2021, where he compared the Grand Theft Auto franchise to James Bond, stating that both are permanent franchises that will last for a long time due to high quality and a deliberate lack of frequent releases, and that the strategy is to release high quality games infrequently, creating anticipation and making each new release feel like a rare, special event, much like a new James Bond film. And considering that GTA 5 released over a decade ago now, are pretty crazy to even think, I know. And now with GTA 6 scheduled to come out next year on May 26, those words ring much more truer than ever before. Continuing on with the interview, he was also asked about not writing for GTA 6 briefly, and his thoughts on it returning to the setting of fictional Miami for the first time since 2002 with the original GTA Vice City.
You mentioned that you haven't written for Grand Theft Auto 6. What's it feel like Grand Theft Auto 6 returning to Vice City? This is over 20 years later, but the original GTA Vice City game was set in the 80s. So maybe inspired by Scarface a little bit?
Scarface, Miami Vice.
Miami Vice.
And our 80s childhoods. You know, what I realized quite a while ago, unfortunately, was that we made that game and it was set, I think, in 86. And we made it in 2002, so it's 16 years after. And now it's way past 16 years since Vice City came out.
You know, I think Miami is one of the most unique cities in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you're thinking about it satirizing American culture. It has this duality of a glossy surface and a dark underworld. It has the influencers, it has the crypto bros, the yachts, bikinis, plastic surgery, sports cars, drugs, cartel cash, luxury, super rich people, and the desperately poor. Just the whole of it. Would it be like the perfect city to explore the full cast of characters that are possible, that human nature can generate?
I think it's one of them. You know, there's a reason why GTA kept coming back to Miami, New York, Los Angeles. I think they're all very good for exactly what you laid out. You know, you could say, move it to any of those and it would work.
So as you can see, Dan briefly talking about the inspiration behind GTA Vice City, and briefly as well answering his thoughts in relation to the setting of fictional Miami coming back for the first time in over 2 decades. And the fact that he agreed with Lex, saying that it's very easy to satirize American culture in these individual cities such as Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. And with him agreeing there, pretty much captures perfectly Rockstar's creative philosophy, not just about recreating American cities, but about holding up a mirror to the American culture itself. Dan was also asked about why there's so much excitement around GTA 6 and the previous Grand Theft Auto titles as well.
Why do you think there was so much excitement about GTA 4, GTA GTA 5 and now GTA 6?
Because they don't come out that regularly. And I think we did a really good job of constantly innovating within what the IP was. The games always felt different. You know, people have very strong feelings. I like this one. I didn't like that one as much because they are pretty different. So there would be simultaneously where you know what's going to happen. It's a Grand Theft Auto, you know, it's going to be a game about being a criminal, but the way it's going to be a game is going to change quite a lot. So I think the way the IP kept evolving meant people being really excited to play it. And we were good at marketing them.
And that's exactly right. I mean, when you really think about it, there's so many different other franchises out there that release annually, like Call of Duty, FIFA, Madden, for example, and so many other franchises out there that release quite regularly, but Grand Theft Auto is still one franchise that doesn't release as much as those ones. And this is what generates excitement within a new iteration of an existing franchise such as GTA 6. Another thing you brought up as well was how each Grand Theft Auto title innovates with each new release. Like for example with GTA 4, Liberty City being in the HD era for the very first time following San Andreas. It was a massive leap at the time in terms of technology, going from the PS2, Xbox to the PS3 and 360 era. With the Rage Euphoria physics, it just goes to show you how much Rockstar really innovates each time. And it was truly revolutionary seeing a real Euphoria physics with NPCs acting like real life people. And how about GTA 5 with how it revolutionized with the 3 main playable protagonists, as well as the character switching system, proving how once again Rockstar innovated again. And the same is likely to be said with Grand Theft Auto 6, as long as the franchise evolves each time and there's something new, a reason as to why you should be picking it up compared to the previous iteration. And you understand why fans are so excited about GTA 6, so hyped about it because of these things that Dan said. Now, continuing on with the interview, he also spoke about not being a part of GTA 6.
Bittersweet to say goodbye to the Grand Theft Auto world and having to watch Grand Theft Auto 6 released? Or is it more excitement? What's the feeling?
I think it's how would I describe it? Of course, it's all of the above. It's exactly as you know, pleased to be doing other stuff, excited for what we're working on now, super excited. Of course, letting go of something I worked on it one way or another for like 20 odd years, you know, and wrote on the last 10 or 11 that came out, wrote all of them, or, you know, lead writer on all of them, whatever it was. So of course, letting go of that is, you know, is a big change and a lot and sad in a way, because it was, each of the games was a kind of standalone story. It would be in some ways sadder if someone continued on Red Dead because it was a cohesive 2-game arc. That might be more sad to hear someone working on that, but that will probably happen too. I don't own the IP. That was the sort of part of the deal. It's a privilege to work on stuff, but you don't necessarily own it.
So you can see how Dan is feeling all of the emotions with not being at Rockstar anymore, and not having the privilege to write on GTA 6, I'm sure does affect him. He is feeling the heightened emotions of course, being at a new studio, that being Absurd Ventures, which he started up a few years ago with Laszlo Jones and now Michael Unsworth, ex-Rockstar employees as well, where he is working on new projects in relation to various IPs with his studio. But you can see how much it does affect him, especially with the Red Dead Redemption franchise, which for him anyways, Red Dead 1 and 2, he did write 2 cohesive story arcs like he mentioned, and he expressed sadness in the fact that if the Red Dead franchise does continue on, that he wouldn't be leading the charge in terms of the writing team and where the direction would head in relation to what would happen next with the franchise. So I do think that it is quite sad, to be perfectly honest, because of the fact that he did write these 2 titles, and specifically with Red Dead Redemption 2, arguably the best narrative for any video game out there, and arguably the best video game written of all time, which he went on in detail to talk about. I'll get you guys to take a listen.
Red Dead Redemption 2, in your opinion, is the best thing you've ever done. I think there's a strong case to be made that it's the greatest game of all time. What are the elements that make that game truly great, do you think?
I think you had an incredibly strong team working together that was very experienced, that had basically been in place since somewhere between 2001 and 2006. So it was a long, experienced team. I think we got to spend a smaller group of us working on it from day one, coming up with some weird, wacky ideas that we got to embed in the game, and then we kind of had to follow through with, that I think was helpful. Like, we got to be very creative before it had a full team on it. I think that the cowboy setting is great because it gives a sort of mythic seriousness. The West and all of the themes around the West really lend itself to that. So I think that, and then the gunplay was fantastic and the horses were incredible. So I think you had this combination of kind of technical know-how, a very, very strong team, and really strong material.
You can hear the pride in Dan's voice talking about RDR2, and honestly, it makes sense. The fact that he worked with the most experienced writing and development team in that period from when they developed Red Dead 2. It all came from a studio that wasn't afraid to chase perfection at the time. And yes, that came with its downsides of the fact that the crunch culture at the time at Rockstar, a lot of the employees were working overtime and somewhere between like 70 to 100 hours per week. And it was pretty insane, to be perfectly honest, but the fact that it did result in such a beautiful and arguably the best video game of all time just goes to show you that Rockstar really wants to focus on trying to raise the bar each time, and the fact that it's pretty synonymous out there that a lot of people do agree that Red Dead Redemption 2 is the best game of all time just goes to show you how awesome it really is. And even 7 years after it has released, only just a few short days ago that it was the anniversary, just goes to show you that it is still a masterpiece from a cinematic storytelling perspective, from a gunplay perspective, as well as from the setting of RDR2, that being the West. You also spoke about RDR2's illness with Arthur getting tuberculosis and the ending.
I'd always been obsessed by TB. As diseases go, it's a great literary device, because it is this long, drawn-out, slow death, but in which you are also getting weaker. So I was always captivated and by TB as an illness. It felt like it was an interesting thing to play around with as an idea, this guy getting weaker who felt like he was immortal, and essentially was immortal. He was the protagonist in a video game. He could not die, and suddenly he is becoming mortal. And but that helps him see stuff. I thought that was a different way of doing a lead character in a game.
Yeah. Do you think it's the greatest character you've ever created?
I think he's the best lead character. The lead characters are different from the side characters, and I think he's the most rounded and works the best. Him and Nico are the two I like. They were the two most ambitious.
So it's so very cool to see Dan speaking about one of the most emotional moments in video game history, if not the most emotional. Our main protagonist of RDR2, Arthur Morgan, getting tuberculosis and then dying. That's the kind of storytelling Rockstar built its reputation on: tragic, layered, and deeply human. And I like how he mentioned that he used tuberculosis as a literary device to drive the narrative, and therefore as a result was the catalyst in Arthur Morgan's demise. The fact that he says it felt like Arthur had this aura about him that he was immortal, but then when he got the disease of tuberculosis he became immortal, which ended up becoming his eventual downfall. I like also the fact that he does mention that alongside Nico Bellic that he's the best lead protagonist within any Rockstar Games title that he's made. Up next we have Dan talking about the cut single player DLC that Rockstar was meant to come out with in 2014 with, as well as the single player DLCs that he worked on and his love for them.
The internet knows we made a DLC, single player DLC for GTA 5 that never came out, and we were also never really worked on another game, but I like the idea of it that was a GTA zombie game. That would have been funny. I think that could have been quite fun.
What was the GTA 5 DLC?
It was one when you played as Trevor, but he was a secret agent.
Oh.
It was cute. It never quite came together and it was never finished. It was about half done when it got abandoned. But I think if that had come out, probably wouldn't have got to make Red Dead 2. So there's always compromises. But it was, I like making the stories. For me, I love the model of GTA 4 when you had the extra stories coming afterwards, or Red Dead 1 when you had the zombie pack coming afterwards. I like just doing these extra things. I personally like to have done more of that in that company, and with stuff we're doing in the future we're going to try and come up with worlds where we can add more stories. I like single player DLC. I just think the audience loves it and it's really fun to make.
It's really cool to hear him talk about his love for single player DLCs, the fact that he really appreciated and loved working on GTA 4 The Lost and Damned and the Ballad of Gay Tony as his most favorite single player DLCs, alongside as well the Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare one. However, it is a shame to hear him talk about the fact that the Agent Trevor DLC that was meant to come out back in 2014 as story mode DLC didn't end up coming to fruition and got cut. How awesome would that have been to play as Trevor? Would have gone undercover as a James Bond style secret agent. However, they did cut it in favor of Red Dead Redemption 2, and I'm sure GTA Online, which he didn't mention, but reports out there suggested that it was in favor for that as well. He also mentions a GTA zombie-like game. Now that would have been something that would have been absolutely hilarious. Now moving on, Dan also spoke about the cancelled Agent game that was meant to be coming out during the PS3 and 360 era that never came to fruition and got abandoned.
We worked a lot on multiple iterations of an open world spy game. and it never came together.
It's the Agent.
Agent, and it had about 5 different iterations.
So good.
I don't think it works. And I keep thinking about it sometimes. So sometimes I lie in bed thinking about it. And I've concluded what makes them really good as film stories makes them not work as video games, or need to think through how to do it in a different way as a video game.
So for people who don't know, it would be hypothetically set in 1970s Cold War era.
That was one of the versions. There was another one that was set in current. We had so many different versions of this game. We worked on so many different teams.
But it would be more geopolitical, like espionage.
Assassinations. I don't know what it would have been, because we never got it enough to even doing a proper story on it. We're doing the early work as you get the world up and running. It never really found its feet. And I sort of think I know why. Because one of those films, they're very, very frenetic, and they beat to beat to beat. You know, you've got to go here and save the world. You've got to go there and stop that person being killed and then save the world. And an open world game does have moments like that when the story comes together. But for large portions, it's a lot kind of looser, and you're just hanging out and you're just doing what you want. And I want freedom, and I want to go over here and do what I want. And I want to go over and do what you want. And that's why it works well being a criminal, because you fundamentally don't have anyone telling you what to do. And we try and create, external agency through these people kind of forcing you into the story at times. But as a spy, that doesn't really work, because you have to be against the clock. So I think for me, I question if you can even make a good open world spy game. So lots of things would work as open world games, but I don't know if a spy does.
How awesome would it have been to see an agent game released by Rockstar? Never happened, like Dan said, for many reasons. There were 5 different iterations, many versions of the agent game that never came to be. One of the versions that it was set in 1970s Cold War as an espionage spy. And you can see here at the E3 Sony press conference back in 2009, it was revealed by Rockstar and Sony themselves.
Agent will take a player across the globe amidst the shadowy world of espionage and assassins in the darkest hours of the late 1970s. It's clear that Rockstar recognizes PlayStation as an ideal place to build an audience, and that's why we're thrilled to have Agent coming exclusively to PlayStation. You're all aware of the impact GTA had on our platforms, and we expect Agent to have the same must-have value.
So it's a big shame that this did not happen whatsoever. As Dan mentions though, it was because how would it work with a spy open world setting in 1970s Cold War, or whatever other iterations that Rockstar, including Dan Houser, had up their sleeve. And one of the reasons Dan mentions that it wouldn't work is because if it was to come to fruition, you would have been a spy in an open world setting, but because you're up against the clock, you're saving the world, it wouldn't necessarily make sense from an open world perspective. And I would probably have to agree with that, but I would counter that and say that you probably still could come out with an agent game that perhaps maybe isn't open world like a Grand Theft Auto title, but perhaps maybe semi-open world that gives players freedom to explore, but within carefully structured zones instead of one giant seamless map. Moving on, Dan talks about when he left Rockstar Games and how he feels then, when it happened, and how he feels now.
You left Rockstar in 2020. What do you miss about your time at Rockstar? Is there specific moments that bring you joy when you think about them?
Of course. It was my whole, it was my life for 20-something years, 21 years or something.
Yeah.
It was, and I moved to America to do it. Grew up doing it, and I was always living in New York. It was at times very intense, and at other times magical experience. But it was also just a huge chunk of my life.
The lows and the highs.
And the middles. It was just my life. My life was that job and the people I knew in New York and my family. And we were doing something that was intense and innovative and both loved and hated by wider society in different ways and at different times, and in this weird company that was constantly in trouble. So it was really fun. You
can hear Dan's voice when he talks about Rockstar, his pride about the company and his time working there for over 2 decades. And that's the kind of creative drive that defined Rockstar's identity, a mix of rebellion, like with the hot coffee situation, art, and cultural reflection. You can also feel the nostalgia when he talks as well, and it makes you realize that relating this back to GTA 6 is just not another release, it's the continuation of a legacy built by people like Dan Houser, an absolute industry leader, someone who poured everything they had into storytelling that challenged society and redefined what games could be. It's a real shame that he's not at Rockstar anymore. Personally, I'd love for him to still be there. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this video at the moment would have loved him to still be there and continue to tell the stories that we love throughout every Rockstar title. He also talks about his love for his brother Sam Houser and the drive that he has had working alongside him.
Sam, for many years, what do you admire about him as a creative mind, as a human being?
His drive and his vision early on to see what video games could become. He was the one who understood that video games were the next big thing. And I think that was, people would laugh in our face about that in those days. And so to have someone that was strong and saying, no, we stay to the course, and then having the confidence to push through with these big projects.
So you can see Dan there really admiring his brother Sam with the vision and drive that he had and still has for video games as a medium. I think if it wasn't for either Dan or Sam being alongside each other, I don't think they would have had the success that they did. And that's why it does suck that we're not going to be seeing Dan writing for GTA 6, and the characters, the storyline, everything about it, it is unfortunate. Nevertheless, I'm sure GTA 6 will still be great without Dan, but it is cool to see him admiring his brother so much about video games being the next big thing. And Dan's also asked about the future of video games and what he would like to see.
Excited for the future of video games?
Yeah. I think I completely. I still look at. I'm glad you've spoken so kindly about our work, about the stuff that I did and the stuff the whole teams did. It's wonderful, but I just look at it and see problems and see things that we can do better. I think it was always try each time, do it better. And I've got, some of the stuff we're working on now is going to do stuff that people haven't really seen before. I think the games can get so much better. They can feel so much more alive. They can be better at storytelling and feel more alive and feel like, their systems, all the stuff, the component parts we talked about, we can both make each of those parts better and tie them together better. I think it's the technology. To me, it still feels like it's only just beginning. Cinema evolved from 1895, whenever it was, and then it's kind of found its modern form. And then by 39, they're shooting in color. And that's basically a modern film is no different from a 1939 film. But with games, I still think we've got a long way to go there.
I love his perspective on the way he talks about it and goes that he sees video games as a problem in the future and the fact that we can do it better, in the sense that developers have the ability to innovate each time with every new release, which, I mean, let's face it, it hasn't necessarily been the case, especially with the PS5 and Xbox Series console generation. However, with a game like Grand Theft Auto 6, it does appear to be that this is most certainly going to innovate on its previous iteration, that being GTA 5, by many, many margins. And I think this also links back to what Dan mentioned earlier with the fact that a Grand Theft Auto title doesn't release every year. It takes a certain amount of time for a new one to come out, and with GTA 6 over a decade. And of course, that is a lengthy amount of time. In between that, you obviously had Red Dead Redemption 2 and a lot of the Rockstar team working on GTA Online as well, and then in the background brainstorming ideas about whatever the next GTA was going to be, in this case GTA 6 with the setting of fictional Miami, returning back to Vice City, and in this case including as well Leonida. So GTA 6 is most certainly going to be the first true game on current gen hardware with the PS5 and the Series X and S consoles that's truly going to take advantage of these consoles and be a true innovator. I do agree with Dan though in the fact that the future of video games is only just beginning at the moment, and we've still got a long way to go. Now, one other thing that was discussed was Dan talking about AI and how this may potentially assist video game development.
Do you have hope for AI helping with some of the video generation, some of the world generation, some of the open world assistance in generating the world?
Yes. Limited. Absolutely. If used correctly, it will be a great tool. If used incorrectly, it will lead to loads of generic stuff. I've been in games for 29 years, and all the time the piece of tech that's going to make making games much easier and much cheaper is about to turn up, and all that's happened is the games have got much better and way more expensive. So I'm always nervous.
So I'm in 100% agreement with Dan here. Like he says, and I think the majority of us would agree with him, in the fact that AI can most definitely help video game developers if it is used correctly as a tool. But if used incorrectly, it can lead to a lot of generic stuff and laziness as well, in my opinion, because I mean, it is very easy just to write something out on ChatGPT, and for it to spur out some nonsense or some generic stuff is quite widely recognized. I think it is great as an assistance tool, but not necessarily something that should drive the narrative within a video game story. And actually, an interview with Strauss Zelnick, the Take-Two CEO, was asked about the AI and the future of the GTA franchise alongside it, with him saying that he believes that AI in its current form cannot create a Grand Theft Auto game, including any potential GTA 7, because it inherently lacks true creativity. He argues that AI models are backward looking and would only produce derivative content which falls short of the perfection and human creativity that Rockstar Games strives for. So there you go. It is nowhere near at the moment in terms of AI in constructing and telling stories like we have seen throughout previous Rockstar Games titles like GTA 4, 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, San Andreas, Vice City, and a plethora of other Rockstar Games titles with amazing stories. But anyways, guys, that does bring us to the end of this video. I absolutely loved making it, going over this interview, watching it earlier today. It was an absolutely awesome watch, and breaking down the important key points that I brought up within today's video. If you guys do want to check out the full interview, I will put a link down in the description below so you guys can check it out. It is very, very lengthy, nearly 3 hours in length, but definitely worth the watch. But Dan Houser is most certainly, like I said at the start of the video, a true icon and a pioneer of the games and entertainment industry, and we must certainly give him his flowers. But anyways, guys, if you wanted to enjoy this video and found any informative value, please consider subscribing to Project Vice, and of course, turn on those post notifications so you never miss an upcoming GTA 6 upload. And also as well, if you haven't already, quick reminder, please consider subscribing to Vice Clips. A link is down in the description below. Any support is greatly appreciated. By that, guys, make sure to stay safe. Have a great day, and I am out.